So, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but apparently there was a cyclone on the weekend. That's right, the sky is falling, the cameras are rolling, and media's biggest hitters are on the front lines. And the media's treating Cyclone Alfred like the end times. Meanwhile, Dutton swapped out sandbags for champagne and caviar, Scomo has now resurfaced among the elites at a fancy dinner, and Jacinta, the Shadow Minister for Government Efficiency, just hit her personal best record of 14-time misuse of funds investigations. Hey guys, my name is Josh. I'm filling in here for Michael for Scam of the Week. Michael's unfortunately a little bit busy with some legal loyal battle stuff. If you'd like to know more about the context of all of that, please click here for the story. But let's roll on to Scam of the Week. Yes, as you guys are probably aware, Queensland just got hit with a cyclone, well, more of a wet puff of air. But the difference is, if you relied on the mainstream media this week, you'd think the apocalypse was upon us. Cyclone Alfred coverage went full Hollywood. CGI storm projections, reporters braving the elements in their best wet weather gear, and endless expert panels predicting every possible scenario. Now look, it's good that the media is paying attention to this, and hopefully some Queenslanders got some useful information out of it. They even scolded locals live on air for surfing or daring to step outside for a look.
Guys, I'm so sorry, we're live on air. The police have said don't do that. The sandbank is falling away.
Now the mainstream media sent some of their big hitters like Paul Murray and Carl Stefanovic, turning cyclone coverage into a blockbuster event, part news, part reality TV spectacle. And yet, for all the wall-to-wall disaster coverage, there was precious little scrutiny of actual emergency preparedness or government response. And of course the mainstream media and their cronies have lined up to take shots at Anthony Albanese. No matter what he does, there's always something to criticise him over the cyclone. While Murdoch columnists screamed about the PM's visit being a political stunt. Now meanwhile, ABC News did partake in some of this sensationalism. They actually delivered critical information focusing on safety, emergency resources, and preparedness. And even ABC Emergency Radio provided real-time updates to those in the cyclone's path. That's not too bad value for 8 cents a day, hey? But while the media had cameras pointed at the storm, one man was nowhere to be found. While Queenslanders braced for Cyclone Alfred, Peter Dutton was nowhere to be seen. In fact, he was in Sydney, sipping champagne with billionaire donors. Dutton wasn't in Dixon, wasn't helping coordinate a response. Instead, he attended a Greek Orthodox church function and then jetted off to Justin Hem's Harbourside estate for a private Liberal Party fundraiser. After a brief media appearance in Brisbane, he flew straight back to Sydney for some more donut schmoozing. Yet, somehow the Murdoch media focused more on Albanese delaying the election than on Dutton literally abandoning his electorate during a natural disaster. You know, Scott Morrison didn't hold a hose so that Peter Dutton didn't hold a sandbag. If Dutton wants to play Prime Minister, maybe he should start by showing up for the people who elected him. And look, it's all media publicity and stunts anyway. Yes, the Prime Minister on the ground is not going to make too much tangible difference. As we know by the Scott Morrison era bushfire disaster, a national leader having your back in a time of crisis is quite important. Let's see how this fares on his election chances. Now, speaking of men who disappeared during a crisis, the good old Scott Morrison, the same man who, yes, vanished to Hawaii during the bushfires of 2019, the man who infamously said, "I don't hold a hose, mate," now freed from pretending to even care about the public, Morrison has found his true calling, mingling with the elite. This week, he was spotted at the Business Council of Australia and the Commonwealth Bank of Australia's dinners, rubbing shoulders with CEOs, bankers, and powerful Australian insiders. And why is Morrison even there? He's no longer in public office? Shouldn't he be off selling weapons in his new defence lobbying gig? No, wait, he's doing both, of course, multitasking. After ejecting himself from the public life of a politician, Morrison landed a cushy job advising defence industry contracts because nothing says public service like cashing in on government connections. Now look, back to the diners a little bit. This is Australia's real club, where ex-prime ministers can walk straight from public office into the pockets of banks and defence contractors, no scrutiny required. Meanwhile, Australians are facing a historic housing crisis. Wages are stagnant and families are being crushed by the cost of living. But rest assured, a $1,200 a head BCA dinner. We're not quite sure why Scomo is so heavily represented in the photos of the event, but it goes to show that these events are all about networking Australia's most powerful business folk. So it wouldn't be Scam of the Week if we didn't mention some honourable mentions. So this week's headlines were a masterclass in elite excess, breathtaking hypocrisy and policy backflips, so fast they'd qualify for the Olympics. Western Australia Premier Roger Cook ditched diplomacy altogether, calling US Vice President JD Vance a knob, because sometimes honesty is the best foreign policy. Julie Bishop racked up $150,000 in travel expenses, while the university she oversees slashes budgets because nothing says leadership like first-class flights. Over in New South Wales, another attempt at pokies reform has quietly disappeared because the gambling lobby never loses. Only the problem gamblers do. And meanwhile, Freedom Furniture is up for sale. A routine market shift or a warning sign that retail is on the way out. And that's it for honorary mentions, but speaking of people who can't just seem to stop spending other people's money, Jacinta Price, the undisputed rorting champion. Allegedly. Now for this week's Scam of the Week winner, a repeat offender mind you, a seasoned veteran in the art of public spending, Shadow Minister for Government Efficiency, yes, efficiency, Jacinta Price has now racked up her 14th investigation for misuse of public funds. Now to clarify, this is an investigation, not an admission of wrongdoing, but 14 times. That is less of an unlucky streak and more of a business model. That is 14 separate instances of questionable expense claims, tax funder paid travel, and campaign adjacent spending. Now look, obviously Alice Springs and the Northern Territory is a very, very far away from the rest of the East Coast, but if we look at the numbers, a lot of things do not seem to stack up. If this were a sport, her trophy cabinet would be as stacked as Scott Morrison's list of secret ministries. This latest investigation, flagged by the Independent Parliamentary Expense Authority, or the IPEA, involves yet another round of mysterious transactions linked to Price's public spending. The details are still emerging, but the pattern is quite clear. And yet, despite a rap sheet longer than a family of five's coal receipt, Price remains in charge of the Coalition's efficiency portfolio. The same Jacinta Price who was just 3 days ago on Sky News railing against Labor's wasteful spending, because apparently government waste is only a problem when someone else does it.
We are looking at what waste currently exists, and let me tell you now that there is a very long list developing as we speak.
Meanwhile, myself and Michael West have actually looked into the numbers behind this so-called government waste, and guess what? The real money drain isn't welfare or public services, it's consultants, lobbyists, and government outsourcing, all of which the Coalition are quite in favour of. Now here's the kicker, right? If this were a Labor MP, the Murdoch press would have them out on the front page for a month. But for Price, a couple of news articles, and then it's back to business as usual. And look, good on for The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald for reporting on this. We do need stuff like this to be brought to light. And it's not about political parties, us versus them. It's about holding the people that we elect to a standard of which we would set ourselves to. You can't be stealing from the piggy bank and then complaining that your little brother's doing the same thing. Dutton wants to talk about government waste. He doesn't need to look far. It's right there in his own party. So congratulations to Jacinta Price. You win Honorary Scam of the Week for this week. Politics in Australia isn't about public service, it's about power, privilege, and knowing which doors to walk through. The media turns disasters into theatre, politicians serve donors before constituents, and public money quietly shifts into private pockets. Well, there you have it. There's Scam of the Week. Congratulations, Jacinta. Did you guys have anything that we may have missed? Feel free to comment down below and let us know. Also, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification button. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers, and I think we get some sort of plaque from YouTube once we reach that threshold, so we can only do this with your support. My name is Josh, and from the West Report, thank you so much for tuning in.